With nearly 6 billion views for its debut, Wednesday is dominating the conversation about Netflix original content right now. To keep up, you'll want to hear about Wednesday's most important influences. Plus, you should check out how many of these Tim Burton Easter eggs and references slid by you in Wednesday. Buckle down for a spooky lesson in Gothic media and prepare to be surprised. You won't get to the biggest revelations unless you watch till the end. Wednesday has stunned and delighted audiences with a heady mix of special students, goth vibes, Gothic architecture to complement those vibes, amazing costuming, and trendy dances. Needless to say, co-creators Alfred Goh and Miles Miller have really hit it out of the park. While all of these cook together into a delicious pie, it's worth noting the delicacies ingredients for our media aficionados who want to know how the treat gets made.
The only person who gets to torture my brother is me.
When you have an iconic filmmaker like Tim Burton, you conjure up a visual of what his aesthetic is.
Influences for Wednesday range from Stephen King's horror classic come girlhood coming-of-age story, Carrie, to the Mystery Machine writers themselves over at Scooby-Doo. Move aside, Velma, we've got a less hackneyed take on some classic sleuthing, this time with way more murder. Are we going to have a sleuth around for hints of inspiration that went into this masterpiece? We won't. We'll do it anyway for fun, but actually, Goh and Miller had an interview with The Hollywood Reporter where they were upfront about their inspirations and creative choices. The first and biggest inspiration, and honestly it's hard to call it an inspiration so much as the foundation, is the Addams Family itself. While Wednesday is a successor to the Addams Family and tells a story with its characters, it's not intended to replace or take place after the primary continuity of Addams Family media. And that media stretches back far, as in the 1930s far. For those not in the know, Charles Addams actually invented his iconic Addams Family characters way back before World War II was over. So the show's producers did not just go back to the TV adaptations beginning in the 60s, but a full 30 years before that to the original source as they crafted this new Addams saga. Tim Burton was a huge Charles Addams fan growing up, so the showrunners instantly clicked with their star director on the topic of pulling inspiration from those panels. Some of the old panels are in the show wholesale as Easter eggs, and the overall darker and more macabre tone is consistently ported in over the more comedic 60s interpretations. The influence and desire to connect with the legacy influenced the casting of Christina Ricci, who'd played Wednesday twice before. Miller said they couldn't pass up the delicious prospect of putting two Wednesdays together in a scene.
Actually, the Warner Brothers bags they have now, those Smallville was the, I remember talking about the design of those bags, the first year they did them. It was like, so it's all like, it's interesting to come back and see all those things that Smallville started.
Right, absolutely. Well,
Referencing the pairing of Christina Ricci and Jenna Ortega, the whole genre of gifted children at magical schools blew up in popularity in the late 00s and early 2010s. And of course, looming large in the back of any conversation about schools where magic might be involved is the titan of the genre, Harry Potter. While J.K. Rowling's controversial tweets and the sagging performance of the new films might have the franchise's brand recognition flagging, they were inspired by the books. Percy Jackson was also a significant influence in how they structured and thought about the plot, as well as the sorts of characters and relationships they introduced. They do explain it was not intended as any sort of an homage, but they acknowledge that a boarding school setting, which season 2 may or may not keep, invites comparison. Really, the setting came more from a desire to get Wednesday out of the house. They wanted to separate her from her family so they could study her in close review without interference from her kooky, spooky family at large, hanging over Wednesday's own show. Tim Burton directed the first 4 episodes of season 1, a full half of the first season's runtime, and he served as a producer for the entire series. That leaves him and his works a logical influence as well, and the showrunners are definitely seeing eye to eye with him.
I kind of treated it like a movie, you know what I mean? It just doesn't have the same kind of structure. Each episode, it's a slower kind of burn, if that makes any sense. It's not like so first act, second, third act.
But they were actually influenced by his works in building Wednesday before he was even attached to the project. They even managed to draw him in partially through the clear influences they wore on their sleeve that tied back to his works. They went for his tone and style in every shot and concept. Another huge influence on the stylistic choices of the film? Why, what other master of horror and suspense with charmingly retro sensibilities could they have picked? It's Stephen King, of course. As we mentioned, his Carrie in particular, a dark dark tale of a girl with special powers pushed to the brink was an informative text for the team. More than anything, however, they credit the very concept of sisterhood itself. Yeah, that's right, sisterhood is the prime inspiration for Wednesday. Talk about a nebulous subject matter. But with the compelling friendship and the struggles of girlhood centered in the narrative thus far, we think they're doing a bang-up job of playing to that core inspiration. Speaking of cores, let's crack a few eggs. Easter eggs, that is. Season 1 of Wednesday was chock full of hidden Easter eggs for clever viewers to pick out, if they have sufficient knowledge of horror history. Let's walk you through it. Between Tim Burton's own works and various other classics, there's quite a few sly references and winks, including the ones back to Charles Addams' original panels.
It was weird, and so there's a lot to be said. There's a lot of great things that happen with that, which I love. But you can't always, sometimes people are busy, sometimes other things, so.
Focusing on the Burton ones, fans of his works will kick themselves if they missed this one, cause remember the cafe? It was staring you in the face the whole time, or rather, pointing you to the wind. It was the back wall of Jericho's Weather Vane Cafe. While they do obscure them in shadows, one is literally the Willy Wonka hat from Burton's rendition. Another has the scissors and pin that ambiguously point us to either Edward Scissorhands or Sweeney Todd, the demon barber of Fleet Street. There's even a weather vane in Wednesday with a headless horseman, a callback to his 1999 flick Sleepy Hollow. If you've seen the show, you recognize the name Uriah Heep and definitely know what's coming next. Yep, that's right, the stuffed roadkill. As it turns out, some of those curious contain sly references like the black and white pinstripe of Beetlejuice fame. It even has the wig. If you caught the Burton adaptation in Dumbo in 2019, before the apocalypse, you may recall that the red circus master suit looks a lot like Danny DeVito's from the flick. So this may sound like a stretch, but it's actually right in your face if you look at it. Remember the canoe race and the Poe-inspired The Black Cat's fits they donned? Very wholesome. Enid and Wednesday out water sporting on the Morbid Kitty. They're wearing black cat suits, and there's some strong connections back to not one but two Burton films, and we can prove the connection is more than skin suit deep. Tim Burton directed a Batman film, if you can believe it. Batman Returns featured a pretty extraordinary Catwoman suit sported by Michelle Pfeiffer. It had unique cross-stitching seen most prominently on Enid's but also present on Wednesdays, where independent panels were sewn together to form the whole outfit. Aside from that though, there's the Edward Scissorhands connection with the protagonist's very similar outfit. While that may sound like a stretch, costume designer Colleen Atwood worked both on Wednesday and Edward Scissorhands, so we'd say that's a deliberate homage. In fact, maybe Colleen still had some parts lying around. It would really add to the authenticity of the look. Keep your eyes peeled for that and the inevitable behind-the-scenes Blu-ray. That's about all the time we have for now. Why not comment an homage or reference you caught down below? Like while you're on the way and subscribe for kooky, spooky time.